Hello, and welcome to another episode of Conversations with Black Women in Tech. Today we have a special guest. Her name is Dr. Valerie Bennett. She is the Assistant Professor, Program Director for Graduate Teacher Education and Director of Educational Technology and Innovation at Clark Atlanta University in the School of Education. She's also the CEO and founder of a nonprofit organization called STEM Compass Inc., whose mission is to navigate, motivate, and educate underserved groups in STEM careers and entrepreneurship. So I know we're going to have a great conversation today. Hopefully, you guys are inspired and motivated to move into the tech world. And let's bring her on. Hello.
Hello, how are you?
I'm well. So excited to finally have a chance to catch up with you. We had some challenges, so I'm glad we're here today.
I'm so glad as well. It's always wonderful to talk and meet your audience. So I'm excited to speak with you.
Hopefully we could talk about some of the challenges that you faced in the tech world, and also maybe some solutions or just some inspiration to help some people that are looking to transition into tech. So let's just get started. The purpose of this show, like I said again, is we want to inspire people, but we also want to give them the truth and let them know what to expect. Did you ever think that you would end up in the tech world in STEM?
That's a great question. I actually did because growing up here in Atlanta, I just always had a love for math and science. I just loved it. And I didn't know what to call it exactly, but senior year is like, yeah, you're good with math, you're good with science, you're good with putting things together. So it's like, okay, I think engineering is what is the label for all of that put together. So I think I always knew I wanted to go into some form of technology, and it just fit me very well. Yeah.
Right. Okay, it is great. So actually, I went to school for engineering. I didn't finish, unfortunately. I ended up having a baby at 19, but I was always good at math and science, and it was hard finding other people that looked like me going to school for engineering. I was in Drexel, and literally it was me. I was the only Black woman in the class, and then there were like two other women, and they were always, every time it came to a group project, it was like, okay, you guys could be the secretary, you guys can take notes. So it's difficult. You have to stand your ground and hold your own. So tell us about how you got to engineering. I know you said that you realized, okay, this is what it was for me. What was your path to get you to where you are now?
Okay. Well, first of all, I want to say I can definitely connect to what you're saying, being that only Black female in the class, and then you don't get chosen to be in the groups, or you can be a secretary, like you said. You're like, no, I
Right.
don't think so. I studied very hard, and also you're still in tech, so it
Mhm.
never really left you. You are a problem solver. Engineers solve problems, and
Right.
so we just do it kind of with the technology spin to it, but you're still engineer now. Don't
Right.
I want to set that straight.
Yes. Okay.
So you are still an engineer, right? So you talked about your question was about this path to kind of where I am now, right?
Hmm.
So I did work after I graduated from Vanderbilt. So I know that PWI navigation is a whole thing, right? But after graduation, have an engineering job for a few years, and then my husband told me that there was a position at Morehouse. They needed someone to teach engineering design for the summer. And I was like, well, okay, I'll teach. And I did it, and I fell in love with teaching. I absolutely fell in love with teaching. And to be honest, I feel like, I've been a teacher my whole life. It just has kind of a label now, but I always wanted to show people how to do things. So that was the start into the education space.
Wow. And so, what was that like for you? Did you see people that looked like you there? Were you the only one? Was it hard to get the job, the interview process?
You mean for the engineering job or for the teaching position?
The teaching position, like when you got there, you took that position.
So what's interesting about that, being at HBCU, right? You're surrounded by
Mm-hmm.
Black excellence, but
Mm-hmm.
I actually got hired into the physics department because that's
Mm-hmm.
where the dual degree engineering classes, were housed. And
Mm-hmm.
I was the only Black female in that department. I
Mm-hmm.
was the only female there. And so
Mm-hmm.
it was kind of the same thing, right? Where you really had to stand your own, stand your ground, really put forth your research agenda, go
Mm-hmm.
after those grants. And it could be very isolating because I was the
Mm-hmm.
youngest there as well.
Mm-hmm.
And so it was some ageism. So it was a lot of different layers going on.
Wow. And so, what kind of thing did you do to, I guess, fight back or overcome that? Because I know it could be a lot of people quit. I've talked to some people who quit and moved to a different position just because they felt like they weren't being heard.
Wow, it did get challenging. It's definitely challenging, but what I found was helpful was there were some advocates in that department that
Mm-hmm.
I reached out to and worked with. Dr. Rockford, he was there at that time, and he and I wrote grants together. So you have to find those open pathways because there's always a way. There's always a way. You just have to look for it.
Mm-hmm.
So not just in my department, but then there are other people on in different offices on campus that, just was friendly and, we were able to connect and find ways to work together. So in any environment, you can really feel very isolated. It's like, oh, woe is me. No one wants to work with me.
Right.
But there are people who are in your corner. And I must say, and faith is a big part of who I am. And, I believe in Jesus and just asking and praying, Lord, guide me,
Mm-hmm.
show me. And I tell you, that makes a huge difference and made a huge difference in my life because people were in my path. People sought me out at times. I was like, how did you find? Oh, yeah, I saw you and I saw you smile. And but
Mm-hmm.
it could be anything. So just open yourself up and to know if that's where God placed you, He will, He will supply your needs. He will
Mm-hmm.
absolutely do it.
And just you being there is an inspiration to probably so many other people who have thought about it and didn't think that they could do it. I remember when I think I was in like the 8th grade when I decided I wanted to do engineering. It was a engineer, he came to talk to us, and there was a Navy SEAL. And I wanted to do both, but they were like, "Oh, you can't be a Navy SEAL. They're only men. They're not letting women in." But I just remember feeling like defeated, like, why can't I be? And it was almost the same thing with engineering to a certain degree when you see all the white men that are there. So, like I said, representation matters, and I'm glad that you are in that space. Now, you might be the first person I've talked to that's been at a HBCU. So I just wonder, like, the differences between when you were working in the field and then going into a place where, everybody looks like you, but you're still experiencing some type of challenge because now you're young or you're a woman. What was the differences between the two?
I think the difference is for me, it was I felt a little bit more comfortable asking or reaching out for help at the HBC because like my first corporate job, you were right. It's all older white men. And I didn't feel too inclined. And that was my first job right out of college. And even my summer internships, were at different, engineering corporations. I did not feel comfortable. Even with the faith, it was just like, oh, it didn't feel right. I didn't feel
Mm-hmm.
like I could reach out to people, but at least seeing other people that looked like me, it did give me some ease. It did allow me to have different conversations, on the techie nerdy side as well as, the administrative side. So it gave me a voice. I felt like I had more of a voice. And you're so right, that representation, because I'll tell you this, Khadijah, I was, I always run into my students, one place or another. And one of my students that I taught after Morehouse, I taught at Westminster. And she told me later on, she was like, you were the only Black teacher I had. I'm like, what?
Mm-hmm.
I couldn't believe it. And, you think we've come far. We have. I'm thankful. I'm thankful where we are, but we just have to keep going, keep increasing those numbers, keep students coming through the pipeline, so
Mhm.
that more students ahead of you, or behind you rather, can see you. And I
Mhm.
always say, if they can see us, they can be us.
I love that. They can see us, they can be us.
Yeah.
And to be honest with you, a lot of times people go all through high school without having any Black teachers at all.
Right.
Or they might have one and you remember that one teacher, Even when I was in school, I was part of it was the National Honor Society for Engineering. And like a lot of my mentors were old white men and they were kind,
Yeah,
thank God, but everybody wasn't.
that's right.
Um, so it's good when you can find that somebody that looks like you, that you feel comfortable talking to them. And a lot of times we talked about on the 2 shows ago how a lot of times people have bad experiences because you think that that person looks like you and that you can go up to them for help. And it's always, not always, but oftentimes you have a bad experience. They
Yeah.
feel like, I've worked hard to get here. You have, they want to put you through the same thing like a hazing.
Right. Academic hazing, I call it.
Yeah. We talked about DE&I initiatives and how there needs to be more of that in the workplace and in schools too. I don't know, how is it? You're at Clark Atlanta now.
Yes,
Do
yes.
they have any DE&I initiatives that can help students who maybe don't see people that look like them and they're afraid to ask for help? Like, what kind of program do they have there?
Well, I must say honestly, I don't know the names of those specifically, but what I can say wholeheartedly is that we have so many student organizations, so many affinity groups where
Hmm.
students can go to. And if there are none, you can submit to have those organizations. So I've actually helped different organizations, students really feel open to talking to us. We really try to build that community, that family. And when I tell you, it truly is, we build that into the fiber of who we are at Clark Atlanta. And, we are all faculty staff. We're really dedicated to helping students with their needs, being that listening ear. So is the whole campus is really, a DNI, DEI.
Mhm.
That's
Yeah.
really what I akin it to. So yeah, yeah.
And so, what if someone was interested in, a career in tech? What suggestions do you give them? Like, how would they get started? I know a lot of times you're the second person I've talked to that actually going to college, and a lot of these people are just getting certificates and they're jumping into the tech field. Do you have any advice?
Yeah, that's a great question. And the last part of what you said, getting a certificate and jumping right in. And I'm happy to see that because there are so many pathways now. It
Mhm.
used to be high school, college, job, or high school, college, master's, whatever degree, job. But right now, there are so many pathways. So if your pathway is the traditional high school, college, 4-year degree, master's, do that pathway. I will say there is a difference in getting the certificate versus going through kind of the more traditional. It tends to be, and this is not 100%, it tends to be that those students that go through the collegiate pathway, their careers tend to be a little bit more sustainable. Sometimes it could be more of a track towards leadership,
Mhm.
tended. This is a tendency. It's not 100%. So don't say Dr. Bennett said, but
Right.
tends to be, right? It tends to be. If you do want to go to a technical college, and that is a great pathway as well, you can, get those degrees, get those certificates. Sometimes it's an associate, sometimes it may not be a degree, but you can just go right into the workforce and that pathway, and that's perfectly fine. We need tech workers. We need people in those positions because I'll tell you, as you know, Khadijah, STEM jobs are the highest paid. STEM jobs are the most unfilled positions. So it's a high demand, but low supply.
Mm,
So
yeah.
whatever pathway you choose, we need you. We need your creativity. We need your expertise. We need your diversity. We need it come on down the road. Let's go.
And then a lot of times too, when you go get into the positions, a lot of these companies will pay for you to go to school. So if you get a certificate and say you go in as a project manager or something like that, you can move around. They'll pay for you to go to school. So it's still a great way if you know if you're a little older and want to kind of get
Yes.
back into it. Yeah. So I
Yeah.
love that. So what about family? What's your family life like?
So family, I love my family. We just had a big celebration over here yesterday, lots of food, but still have some left. But yes, I'm married to Harold Bennett, Dr. Harold Bennett. He's also a college professor as well. We've been married, oh my goodness, close to now he knows, I must admit, he knows the time, he can tell you the hours. I
Oh,
I know I love numbers, but that part of me has not evolved.
that's funny.
So he can tell you this many hours, this many days. So 25 years, 25 plus years we've been married. Um,
Wow.
yes, yes. I have two wonderful children, two adult children, Quentin and Imani. They are both in the workforce. I'm so very proud of them. They are doing an amazing job at what they're doing. So yeah.
Oh, I love that. So what's your work-life balance like? Like when were you done school and then you started having kids? Or I see you have your PhD, so you know you were really working hard getting that education. A friend of mine, she got her master's and she was still having babies and going to school, you know, building businesses and raising babies all at the same time. What was that like for you?
Oh, I love this question. I love this question, Khadijah, because I will tell you, when I graduated from Vanderbilt and then I enrolled at Georgia Tech for my master's and PhD. And on the pathway to getting my PhD, I got I got I got married, and then what was it? 2 years later, I got pregnant, and I was at Georgia Tech in the PhD program. Now I tell you, being at Georgia Tech, again, surrounded by white men, there are a few black males and females, but in my particular department, I was the only black female. And I'm like, oh my goodness, I'm pregnant. Should I tell my thesis advisor? How long can I hide this? Because I didn't feel comfortable talking to him about this,
Right.
because that meant, you know, work is going to slow down. It's going to delay me finishing. I'm like, it was like this serious thing. I didn't know what to do. So here I am. It's 5 months later. You know, I'm thinking I'm hiding it, 5 months now. I almost laugh at it now. But I finally get the courage to tell my thesis advisor. His name, Dr. McDowell. Love him. Love him. I said, Dr. McDowell, I'm pregnant. And I don't know how this is going to affect me finishing. He was like, oh, I know. You good.
And you think you hide something.
I think I'm lying. I
That's
finally
funny.
get the courage. He was like, oh, I know. You're good. You're good. And so he was so supportive. So I'm so thankful. I had a supportive thesis advisor. If I needed to go to doctor's appointments or anything, yes, go. That's the wonderful thing about graduate school is you can really live your life. It's more of not regimented time as much as you are in regular school, as in undergraduate rather. So had a great thesis advisor, and of course my family, my mom who was alive at the time, my sisters, just so supportive. My brother, it was just a wonderful. We got you, and so I'm
Yeah.
so thankful of that. So if you may not have that family, there are friends, there are people you can ask to get. I'm gonna say the bad word, help.
Yes.
Get help.
Yeah.
Get support. If you don't ask not, right?
Yeah.
So you have to ask, and you have to let people know what you're doing. And that's the one advice I would definitely say, because you talk about this work-life balance. I don't know if it's a balance, it's you navigate it. It's
Right.
not everything's 50%, everyone gets equal, because that's just not how it goes.
Mm-hmm.
There are some periods of times in your life, I call it IWP, intense work periods.
Mm.
And so if you know you coming on an intense work period,
Yeah.
I need help, guys. I can't cook dinner every night. I love you guys. There's,
Mhm.
Uber Eats. Can y'all handle dinner for these next 3 or 4 weeks or whatever that is?
Mhm.
Great. But the challenge is when we go, we know we're going into an IWP and we don't tell anybody. And then we
Mhm.
get mad at people when they don't support. You don't help me. Well, you never told him what's going
Right.
on. Right. So I must say you have to alert people. It's like putting on the turn signal. Don't you hate when people just swerve and turn?
Yeah.
Same thing. You gotta let
Mhm.
people know. Signal. Put a signal on.
Yep. I love that. IWPs. I got to use that. Listen, guys, it's about to get real around here.
Yes. Let people know. Let people know. And they may even say, oh, I can bring food for you. I can do this for you. No problem. Right.
Yeah.
But you have to do that.
Well, thank you so much for spending a little bit of time with me this morning. I hope you guys are inspired and motivated to get out there despite some of the challenges. You're needed. Where can the people find you if they want to follow you and just see what you have going on?
Certainly, certainly. I am on Facebook, LinkedIn, and Instagram. You can find me under my nonprofit, which is STEM Compass Inc., as well as the STEM Doctor, which is, of course, on Facebook and on Instagram. And I would love to connect with you. Please visit my website, stemdoctor.net, where you can connect with me. And you can also find some great resources. I have books, I have STEM kits for you to work with, you and your family, you and your parents. So it's some pretty awesome stuff there. So stemdoctor.net.
Thank you so much. Have